So our next painting technique that we're going to do is blending. Blending is one of my favorites to do while I paint. I like it because you get to mix wet on wet, so the paint is wet on your paper or canvas. You can see in these examples how it leads to some really rich tones because you'll start with 2 or more colors, and as it's wet, you just blend it together. This can be a really great tool for trying to develop shadows or some shading in your artwork, as well as just to give some different effects that have a neat look. So what you're going to need to do for this one is to make sure you have some paint out on your palette. Now you'll notice I even have straight colors just out on here, which I can use for mixing, because on here I can move between the colors and not have to worry about washing my brush because I'm not going to put these paints back into the ice cube tray. But if I was to move from red to white in my ice cube tray, it would ruin it all. So make sure you pull out some colors that you think you might want to use, and you can have some that are already pre-mixed as well. So if I wanted to use like that pink color again, I could, but you could also just use the straight color that it is. So now I'm going to do some like red and orange, maybe a little white. So let's say I'm making a sphere. I just start painting one color, and before it dries, and we have some time to do some color mixing, you just start blending it. Now, it may work for a little bit lighter color, so I switch to white. Maybe I'll pull in some more orange here once it's lighter. And when you're blending, you just want to make sure that you don't lose all of your colors. So you want it to be a nice gradual change, and like what you see here. You can always wash your brush off if you need to. And you can even pull in some other colors that are completely out of there. This is where if you don't want it to touch, you can see how if I go over that, it'll blend into it. You want to maybe let some parts dry. But for me, I just wanted to show some different ways that blending can make some cool textures into your artwork. So have some fun with some blending. So basically it's wet on wet, where you're mixing the colors on the paper, which is the opposite of flat color, where you have to mix them all in advance. For the next technique, this is one that works really well with the flat brushes, as well as if you have a fan brush. If you don't have a fan brush in your kit, remember you can go to the painting cart and you can get some, and you might want to need to return that when you're done. The flat brushes work well because they can kind of move out more, but round brushes will work for this as well. So what I'm going to do is take some more paint and put it out onto my palette. You want to try and not get your brush too wet for this one, and that makes sense, I'm sure, because of the name is dry brush. So if you get too much paint on your brush, you can just gently dab at it on your paper towel. You can even dot if you need to get more off. And then basically, you're just trying to get a look where it will go from wet to drier. So this is really good for grass textures. You can see where I have more, but you can still see the dry brush. You can do colors over the top of each other. I like to do this after I've done at least a flat color or something else, because you'll find that it looks better when it's not got just plain white. I encourage you for your final painting to make sure that you are painting your background first, because we don't want to see any of the white of the paper. Normally with painting, you can in watercolor, but with like other types of paints like acrylic or tempera, you want to see the color behind it, not the other. So you could do like some patterns and stuff like that. I'm actually going to come in and do a little bit of dry brush back on my layering texture. You can see I got a little bit too much, but that's okay, because I can fix that. And I can just make it look like there's some grass over the top. So as you work, you're probably going to want to come back into some of the ones that had different layers. You could do some more things with that. Where I got it too thick, I might need to come back with the lighter green again. And then I can make that go away. You might need to wait for it to dry a little more. So you just keep working back and forth with that. And for your guys' viewing, remember that on the PowerPoint, you just kind of follow right along. So this is dry brush, and you can see how it's over colors. Here it looks really cool for these hats that were created. And I'm just going to keep moving right along. These ones don't take as long as some of the others. So scumbling is the next one, and it's similar to dry brush. It is usually done over a color that's already there. what you'll do is you'll move the brush almost like it's in a rumble or a fight, and you're just doing circles. So whichever brush you would like to use, I'm going to use one of my smaller flat brushes, and you can have it drier or wetter, but basically you just take and you're a little bit harder on the brush than you were before, and you just kind of scumble it around. If you get it a little bit where it's drier, you kind of get into some different textures, and this is a great way to build up some different layers. So scumbling is just doing little circles, and you're really pushing the paint around a little more aggression towards it, versus dry brush where you just have a dry brush and you're like trying to do some texturizing stuff. So maybe if I wanted to come back to my layering texture one in my sky, I might want to take and make it a little bit lighter for some clouds. This would be a good one to do. And I just realized I did not have the document cam on. So I'll show that one again down in my actual little painting spot here. See, I do it when I'm demonstrating in class and on the doc cam. All right, so get some more white here in that, and I could do some scumbling for some clouds, get a little texture. If you need a little more white, you can always do some blending while you're scumbling. So the techniques don't usually get used in isolation. And since I forgot to show you that one, I'll do it down below in my little mini painting. So what you want to do is just really push that around. You can get a little drier as you go, builds up some fun textures. Again, I recommend putting a color underneath so that you can have this on top of it, because you can see in my clouds how that looks a little bit different. It's a perfect time for me to talk about this little small painting at the bottom as well. So anytime you're waiting for something to dry, or when you finish, you have a little bit of time left waiting for your classmates, you can come down here and just kind of see what you can make. It's very free, and you just get to try out some different techniques. All right, so pointillism is very, very similar to one that we did in our drawing unit, and it's called stippling. In paint, it's called pointillism because you're mixing the colors and trying to get them to blend together when it's finished. So what you're going to do is, I tend to use the round brush more, but you can use any brush, and then you just dot your colors out. And what will happen is that your eye will mix them together. So this will look more like a red-orange when you're farther away. Up close, of course, it's going to resemble all the colors, but when you look at it from farther back, it'll blend together. I sometimes like to use more than one brush, so that way I can just wash them all at the end. But again, if you are mixing colors on your paper, you can't go back to the ice cube tray. So now I might come in with a little more red. Up in the corner of the room by the phone, there's a painting that was created all using dots, and that is Afternoon on La Grande Jatte by Georges Seurat. It's actually a very huge painting, but this was how he created that one. You just can keep doing that. I could actually be making it into something if I wanted. For this, I'm just trying to show you the different parts. If you have a little flat brush or even a bigger flat brush or your fan brush, you can do pointillism with those as well. So let me show you what that one looks like. So you can see how that will affect it.